Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for May 6th, 2025. I'll go ahead and call us to order. Ask everybody here to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, you have in front of you the draft agenda. There's nothing else for the draft agenda. Anything else for the draft agenda? If not, I will move that we adopt the draft agenda as is. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward then in the agenda to the consent agenda. The consent agenda items are the April 2025 payroll summary and authorization, and item 4A, which is the claims vouchers totaling $1,335,135.30. I'll move the adoption of those two consent agenda items. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda items. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. Tonight under 5A, we have one set of meeting minutes. Those are the April 15, 2025 regular meeting minutes. I will move that we adopt the April 15, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Teofilak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the April 15, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 6, which is public comment. Is there any request for public comment? We'll start first in the room tonight. And go ahead and, yes, go ahead. Please come forward to the microphone or one of the microphones in front of you. And after we do public comment in the room, I'll go to our online Zoom platform for anybody that's watching on Zoom. Well, good evening. And is this separate or together? Separate?
Yeah.
And can you please state your name for the record? And
My name is Jean Clinch.
good evening. And what part of the RFA or the area are you from?
I live on Locust Way,
Very good.
South County.
Welcome. Please go ahead.
I'm just here because I want to thank you, first of all, for banning or allowing that to happen and supporting the banning of fireworks and the sale of fireworks. I live in a wooded area, and years ago, we were out of town and some kids were playing in our backyard, started a fire they were playing with firecrackers and started a fire. The neighbors rallied and connected hoses and got the thing put out, but it was really traumatic for all of them. And it's only drier now, so we're kind of stuck to our home and have to be so vigilant during the holiday season, where we feel like if we could get some better enforcement and more attention on the bans, that maybe it wouldn't be such an issue. And I was wondering too, if there was anything that we could do to help in that process. I speak for quite a few people who agree with the ban and would like to help. And so I don't know what that could be, but I would really like to be a part of that.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Up next.
Hi, I'm Mickey Gunderson. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mr.
absolutely.
Kennedy.
Get closer, it would be better.
Pardon me?
Closer to the mic would be
Closer?
better.
How's that?
And-
Is that better?
It is.
I see all these heads nodding. Thank
And
you.
Ms. Gunderson from the Hilltop area?
Yes.
Yes, I
The
remember.
last time I saw
Very
you,
good.
you and I both had black hair.
Uh-oh. It's been a while.
It's been that long
Yeah.
since I've been here, so shame
Yeah.
shame on me. And thank you, David Chan, for getting in touch with me. I've lived in my home for 63 years
Mm.
and I live up on top of the hill that Jean lives on. And I own 3.5 acres. You know, back then we paid $10,000 for it with a house on it. And I just can't sell it. I love it. And when the development came in 2003 and four, you know, I talked with neighbors, I worked with the neighbors. But around my property, which is 1,000 feet long and 280 feet wide, something like that, there's 23 houses. And in the beginning, there were tons and tons and tons of fireworks going on, huge displays. There's 105 houses in that 30 acres, and including my 3 acres. And so anyway, so for years I've taken flyers around. I'm the weird little old lady that lives at the end of the road, and I don't care. I take flyers around and I talk to people. And I took a survey about 4 years ago. I knocked on doors and talked with people, and 80% of the people I talked to were afraid of the fireworks. They didn't want fireworks, but there's always a few people that do them, and they seem kind of like bullies a little bit, and they're kind of afraid to confront them. And so they maybe go and watch, but they tell me in secret. And I like Jean stay home. So all these years I'm home, sitting there watching, you know, my trees. I've had fireworks blow up on my patio that other people have shot off, and it's really scary. So I've been also taking around your flyers, and they're wonderful, and your signs, but I have some ideas, and I hope they're not offensive. They might be, and I apologize for that, but so I remember that in 2009, we're the Hilltop Locust Community Group, and we've been working on in our community since 1997. And in 2009, we were the ones that started the annexation, and of course, we were defeated by the fire department. And the fire department did such a good job of getting the word out, and they had these gigantic signs. They were 4 by 8 foot pieces of plywood that were painted black, and they were down in the corners and across the school. And I mean, you couldn't not notice it. And I was thinking maybe you guys could do something like that now. I mean, get great big signs out there. I mean, the ones that you have are lovely, but they're small. And last year at Station 22, there was one sign that they put out. I put out 3 or 4 more, and they're just too small. And it's almost like, it's like, well, you know, there's a fireworks ban. We need to have those signs out there. We need to have, hey, look, you guys, we're for it. The firemen are for it. So I want to ask the firemen, who everybody loves. We all love our firemen. In fact, last month they were down at my house because my fire alarm said, evacuate, evacuate. And then I thought, what? I was on the phone, and then she said, carbon monoxide.
Mm.
And so I called the fire department. They came down, they went through my messy house. I was really embarrassed. But I was so happy they were there, and they opened all the windows and blew stuff out with fans. I did have carbon monoxide. And I'm really glad that I bought that thing from Costco that let me know that. So, let me see. So, let me see what I need to say. So anyway, I want to ask the firemen to do some more, because people love firemen, and people followed the firemen through the annexation. And I don't know, we just always love it, don't you? Don't you kind of love the firemen? We just love our firemen. And I think they'll listen to you. Some people listen to me, but they're going to listen to the firemen better. So I would like to see more involvement with just the firemen. In the old days, I know it was easier, but they drove around in their trucks and they stopped and they talked to people. So I would like to, this sounds really awful, but this is what I want to say. I would like to have a place where I can send a phone number or an address of people that I know that do big nasty fireworks every year. I talked to a guy in the corner. In fact, he lives right behind Station 22. He has bleachers that he puts out in the street, and they blow fireworks up, and they blow them across the street. I was almost hit once just going for a walk, and I went and talked to him, and his attitude is, oh yeah, I know, but it's so neat for the kids, and I like to do it for the kids and the neighbors. Everybody appreciates it so much. I can never help that guy, but you guys can. If you went and talked to him, I could give you his address. It sounds horrible. I hate to be a snitch, but you know, what else can I do? I mean, so I would rather do that than have the woods burn up. So I'd like to have a place, and I'd like to have it advertised where people can call you guys or send you a letter and say, this is somebody I need you to go talk to. And I think if the firemen came and talked to them, that it would help. And I know there's a lot of people, but in my little neighborhood, I think that you could make that difference. So I don't know, I guess that's it. bigger signs. I'd like to see the fire trucks coming through the neighborhoods. I'd like to see the firemen knocking on doors, talking to people, maybe handing out flyers. I know they're busy. I hate to ask that, but people love the firemen, and I think that's a big deal, and it'll make a difference. And some gigantic signs to let people know that this is really serious. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for all the work you've done to get the ban in on both the selling and the sending them off. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Ms. Gunderson. Thank you for your support over many years.
You're welcome.
And we may have the chief say a few words about our current status on
Yeah.
fireworks when we get to the chief's report. And I know we're going to have a larger discussion about what our 4th of July plan is at our June 3 meeting, but I'm sure the chief can say a few words tonight.
Let me just say one other thing. I'd like to see some more stuff in the newspaper and in your flyers you send out. Big stuff right across the front.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, our Zoom platform, sorry. Ms. Blankenship, if you can tell me, do we have anybody on our Zoom platform that wants to address the board and public
We do
comments?
not. Nobody
No?
this
Okay,
evening.
very
How about
good.
other people in the room?
Oh, yeah. Anybody else in the room want to make public comment to the board? Not seeing any other requests for public comment. Thank you. We'll close public comment and move forward in the agenda then to item number 7, which is the fire chief's report. Good evening, Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Kenny, the board, the public and staff. I have a brief chief's report tonight. I will give an update. I know our communication director, Christy, and Shauna Ree are working on ways to communicate and educate. One of the ideas that was actually brought to my attention today is there's the ability to get advertising on Hulu within a geographical area. So we are looking at some other ways to educate people that the ban and the discharge of fireworks in our area is no longer legal. And we'll bring, and Christy's here, so she heard the idea about signs and how we can actually better educate and those kind of pieces. But there are some things, obviously, outside social media. I didn't realize you could do this, but we could put local announcements on Hulu. So when people are logged into Hulu and they actually, pay the lowest fee and not get rid of advertisements, we could actually have an advertisement during that certain time that says fireworks are banned in this area, and we can tell them that while they're watching their favorite episode on Hulu. So we are looking at some maybe different ways to touch people that, I never even considered doing. So we'll have, and I'll look at Christy, because Christy's the one that is in charge of that and is kind of the spearhead along with Shauna Ree. Anything else to add on kind of where you are with communications on fireworks?
Yeah, we actually, our team just met today to talk about that. And we are planning a very robust campaign that would involve radio ads, that could involve some television style ads as well. And we're kind of going to try a little bit something different this year to appeal to people's emotions in doing it for your neighbors, doing it for veterans, doing it for the pets, all of those things, rather than just saying it's illegal and you shouldn't do it. So we are really working to explore ways of getting through to people and making that difference. I really appreciate you guys coming here and sharing your thoughts. I think big signage is a good thing. So we'll definitely look into that. And you asked, what can residents do to help with this effort? It sounds like you guys know about the signs that you can pick up at fire stations. We'll make those available again this year, and people can put those in their yards. And I think beyond that, it's really educating people, not just on the fact that fireworks are illegal, but on the harm that they can cause. Because though it doesn't happen very frequently, it's one of those kinds of events that can cause far-reaching impacts if you have a fire or you have an injury or worse. And we see these things happen, and we see over and over that people just plainly don't realize the real risk that they're dealing with for having a little bit of fun. So really appreciate you guys being here and sharing your thoughts. I'd love to get your contact information, so maybe we can follow up with you guys and see what else we can do. Cool. I'll just keep going.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for having me. So we have something we wanted to share with you all tonight to follow up with the special election that was April 22nd in the city of Edmonds. Voters supported annexation into the RFA by 62%. So we really just want to welcome the city of Edmonds residents into the RFA. This is kind of a stronger path forward in a relationship that we've had with the city of Edmonds since 2010 and have been serving the people of Edmonds for 15 years. And this means that they will have a stronger voice in their fire and emergency medical services. So this is really great news. And this map shows you how the precincts across Edmonds voted. What kind of stands out is that there was not a single precinct that voted the measure down. Every precinct supported the measure by 50% or more. There was a turnout in Edmonds of more than 42%, close to 43%, which is pretty outstanding. And so we're really glad that people turned out for this. We thank the people of Edmonds for coming out and for supporting this measure. We are starting to get some questions. We did have a news release go out this week that hopefully will help answer some of the questions that residents might have about the next steps forward. And we will continue to make sure we get out communication to answer those questions about what changes are in store. You have anything you wanted to add, Chief? We do have an event we also wanted to tell you guys about, and that is our EMS Week Open House. It's going to be in a couple of Saturdays, May 17th from 11 to 1. This is going to be at Hilltop Fire Station 22, so we'd love to see you guys there. So we're going to have a teddy bear clinic where you can get all the boo-boos bandaged up. You can learn hands-only CPR. We're going to be talking about car seats, and we'll have a nice interactive display where families can kind of learn if their child still needs to be in a booster seat. And obviously you can meet your firefighters, check out the fire truck and all those fun things. So we hope to see some of the commissioners there and lots of members of the community as well.
Great, thank you.
We don't have any video or pictures, but we had a second alarm fire last night, just not far from headquarters at the storage, on the other side of 128th. Myself, Jason, a couple of the other chiefs actually were there. It went to a second alarm, and we don't often get fires where we have 3 aerials up flowing water. I guess I really want to say that the first in crews kept it at bay, and when and that was no small feat. They had to go around the back, cut through the fence to get to the water supply on, at the 128th hangar apartments. And so the crews did extraordinary work, especially the first in crews that were there, to keep the fire where it was at when they got there. And so again, I know I say this before, the crews again do exceptional work out for us in the street. I'm sure the fire is still under investigation. I've not heard any more than that. I do not believe anybody was injured. And so I just wanted that one made the media and let you know kind of what I know about it. And again, thanks to the crews for the great work they do. And so with that, that'll conclude the chief's report unless you have any questions.
Questions for the chief on the chief's report?
I have a question.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I saw the article. They said you said that there's right next door, there's a chemical being stored in there. Is that the same storage area or just a separate entity?
It's the same storage area.
So the storage area, they allow the chemical being stored in those public storage area?
Well, I'm not familiar with the chemicals that were there. I just know there were several trucks, several boats and stuff stored. So the term chemical, I don't I don't know what they're referring to specifically. There was actually propane tanks and, boats were full of fuel. So they did have petroleum products and such that they were dealing with as part of the result. This was where the fire started was not enclosed. It was open, and I believe they kept it from damaging at least very little of the enclosed that was on the south side. So,
At one time, Commissioner Matter asking us, we identify exactly where the area that have the chemicals, and so that we're totally aware of it. And of course, we, at that time, remember there's a big fire in Shanghai. They put, they did not know the chemical part of it. And that's another biggest fear I have, that we do not know what people put in the storage.
yeah, and
area.
and in this certain area, it's different than the identified places that have chemicals that are placarded and all that. We do know where those are, and we keep that up to date. The hazmat teams do that countywide. This is different. Quite frankly, when you go to a storage unit like that, we were able to see what was on fire in this case once we got water on it, got some of the smoke cleared. When they're enclosed, you don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a risk. That's a risk across the board for us now. But in this case, we knew it was trucks, cars, boats, and other type of, that's what was burning, and the crews could see that when they got there.
Yeah, so you guys can identify. I'm more also concerned the safety of our firefighter, so that they get proper equipment to go in there, right? We do have some kind of, if we know there's chemical, we have some kind of way to approach them.
Yeah, the crews are well versed. If they are in an event that is a chemical environment, their current protective gear that they have for structure fires could do a certain amount of things. But we do have technical hazmat capability in the RFA, which has, if we have to, we can put on fully encapsulated level A entry if we need to do that. We have the training and the equipment to do that if needed.
Okay. When we finish, I'd like to make a couple public comments. Too.
We'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Farnhoff.
Thank you, Chief, for your report. Who was the IC on that incident?
Chief Fitzgerald.
And I can tell you, as somebody who's not only a member of the public, but sits on the board here, I listened to the entire call, play by play, so to speak. And I can tell you, I've never heard a more well-run and organized multi-agency response, because it wasn't just South County Fire. We had Everett, we had Mukilteo, we had all sorts of folks that came in and helped us. And just a shout out to the crews. Even though I didn't go, it was an amazing thing just to witness, just through the organizational lens. So thank you to everybody.
Other questions for the chief on the chief's report? Commissioner Chan, did you have something on the chief's report?
Well, I know, I just want to let all the people speak up today. Then I think in June 3rd,
June 3rd, yeah.
June 3rd, we're gonna have a meeting about the plan and everything else. You guys are more than welcome to come by and to input. I also see other people here. Those are the people who support the ban for us. I just still remember when I first got on, that was our missions to do the ban. It took 20 years to get the ban done, and we actually have to go to show the county council with the pictures. Kids' hands got burned and all that. And Leslie did a great job. So I appreciate you guys show up in here and show your support. And also that I think eventually we come up with some plan, we'll get back to you guys, what you guys can do. I totally appreciate that. I think most of the commissioners we did talk about, all of them, I think, pre-support that, the ban. Thank you very much. And I forgot, I live in Lake Stickney. Not only the fire, the injury and all that, but they shoot right into the lake. So the residue, whatever those things are not good for the fish, I know that. So that's environment, that's a very hurtful too. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving forward in the agenda then, we have item number 8, which is our legal report with our legal counsel, Richard Davis, on Zoom with us. Good evening, Mr. Davis.
Good evening. I wanted to mention a new case that came out at the Court of Appeals level that we're going to be posting something on our news blog on our firm site, but I wanted to go ahead and mention it. And it deals with executive sessions. And the parties were Arthur West, who you'll recognize as one of the more active advocates for open government in the state. He's a litigant in a number of cases and previous cases, and the city of Walla Walla. And what was going on is that the city was selecting a new city manager, and they noted a special meeting to evaluate qualifications of an applicant for public employment. They cited the statute, did that correctly. And then they say, followed by an open session to vote to select 5 finalists for the position. So that everything was good so far, and the city went in and held their executive session. And when they came out, it's when things start to go bad. The mayor proclaimed to the effect of, the council is unanimously of the opinion that of the 8 semifinalists, only one of them, from our perspective, and for a variety of reasons, is superior to the other applicants. And blah, 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 goes on. And therefore, we've decided to postpone any further interview process and to notify the candidate, that selected candidate, of the decision to begin negotiations. So then a motion is made at that point to move forward with negotiations with the selected candidate and offer employment. There's no discussion. It's a motion. A vote is held. It passes unanimously. Well, as you can see, that there are problems with the process here. And a community member wrote an article in the paper and complained about it. In violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. In order to fix the problem, the council decided, well, let's reconsider our prior vote in a subsequent meeting. So they did that, had a discussion. Unfortunately, one of the council members says, well, I think we violated the OPMA in that prior act. And then they had a motion to offer the job to the selected candidate. At that point, the community member who had written the newspaper article wrote a letter and says, I'm going to bring a lawsuit for a violation unless you issue an apology that you violated the OPMA and you take some other remedial action. Long story short, Arthur West becomes aware of this and files suit against the city council, claiming a violation of the OPMA. Sure enough, the court found, at least on that, there are a number of issues, but on that pertinent issue, the court found in favor of Mr. West. And as you'll recall from your training, when a violation occurs, there can be a penalty of $500 against any person who violated it. But in addition to that, there can be an automatic recovery of attorney's fees and costs. Now, there are a few lessons to be learned from this. Nothing really in that holding is very remarkable. But I mean, as we all know, you can't make final decisions in executive session. There can be a robust discussion, but at the end of the day, the final decisions, can't take any straw polls or anything in executive session. You have to make that decision, the final decision in open session. If final action, here's another, I think, kind of important point, and that is if final action is to be taken immediately following executive session, it could be tempting not to kind of go over the discussion that was held, but really the purpose of the Open Public Meetings Act is so that the public can see what the commission is thinking, what each commissioner is thinking. So it is important and may look like it retreads some ground that was covered in executive session. That discussion really does need to happen on the record. That was clearly a mistake by the city council. And third, and I think that they could have broadened the action that they were going to take at the special meeting. Had the agenda provided a kind of a broader array of options for the council to take, I think they would have been in better shape. Here it was very specific what they were going to do. They were going to limit the pool down to 5 candidates. But had they said something like, we're going to determine the process for selecting the candidate for city manager, that would have given them some flexibility to move. Maybe they found one that was just heads and shoulders above the others. They could have gone that direction, or they could have narrowed the pool to 5, whatever. So I think, there's some art to drafting these agenda items because when you have a special meeting, the only final action you can take is what's in your agenda. And giving some flexibility while still putting the public on notice of what you're doing is important. And then finally, just a reminder, the citizens are watching. It could be nobody shows up in the audience, but people are watching, and the citizens care about open government. So it's important to keep that in mind. So it's a good reminder. Again, nothing too remarkable about the case, but I did feel that there were some lessons to be learned here. So that's all I have for my report tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members for Mr. Davis? Any questions from the board members? If not, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Right, thank you.
That moves us forward on the agenda. Item number 9, which is our union report, and we have with us tonight President Pat Moore. Good evening, President Moore.
Good evening, Commissioner Tenney. Board, thank you guys for having me on here. Good to see you guys. I was hoping to be in person tonight, but ended up having an appointment I got to get to this evening. But I just wanted to let you know we're finally happy to breathe. We're thankful that the Edmonds voters passed the RFA annexation. Appreciative of our members that got out and spoke with them. I know we had a lot of really good interactions, and I think the results of that obviously reflect those interactions that we're at. With that said, too, we're looking forward to the June 3rd meeting. I plan on attending the workshop to hopefully participate in that, and looking forward to seeing what changes might be coming for the city of Edmonds and the rest of the RFA. I do want to say, Commissioner Kenny, I do appreciate you taking my phone call earlier this afternoon and just at least allowing me the opportunity to express some concerns that the union would like to make regarding one of the resolutions on the agenda tonight, which is the emergent need of an assistant chief in the fire prevention office. The union obviously believes that there's concern that it might be impacting our membership and our bargaining work that's been being done. We aren't quite sure what the emergency is because this has been an ongoing issue since 2024. And we have email exchanges from Assistant Chief Anderson to the deputy fire marshals, assigning them as the code officials for those cities. So there's documentation that clearly shows that it's been assigned, it was bargaining unit work, and now it's appearing that it's transferring over to a non-represented employee. And so we have some concern of it. We brought some stuff forward over the past few months that would have been, quite frankly, we believe a cheaper resolution for the taxpayers in the RFA versus creating an additional FTE position. I understand there might be some other needs for potential, bringing on an additional or assistant chief while we potentially might be bringing on somebody to replace Chief Eastman when he does retire and kind of do some training. So I understand that. And I'm not here to tell you guys, obviously, you can't hire an assistant chief. I have no say in that. And you guys can hire whoever you want. But we do have a concern with the scope of the work that would be potentially assigned to that individual. And so we just ask that to be considered, as you move forward in the resolution process on whether the board takes action on that tonight or not. But we do believe that we have, quite a bit of history that shows that it is our members that were doing that work. And it's been a little bit messy. I know that because when we had Fire Marshal Weber was here, he went from being represented to then non-represented. And then we've had some changeover since then. So it's kind of gone back and forth both ways. The most recent was obviously our members doing it. So, and being assigned it as evident by the email exchanges we have, where the deputy fire marshals were assigned that role. So I think, I just would ask you guys, to please consider it. And if you got any questions, on our concerns, please feel free to reach out and talk with me about that. But we have people that, to my understanding, we have people that are qualified in the deputy fire marshal's office to do it. And it's my understanding too, that there's a potential that maybe somebody could be pulled up out of that division and moved into an assistant chief role, which then, you know, is something that's kind of a concern because we do pride on having somewhat of a testing process in the organization. And I think there's something to be said for coming up through the ranks and going into those positions. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I want to share. And I do appreciate the phone call that you provided me the opportunity, Commissioner Kenny, to talk with you.
President Moore, thank you for your comments tonight. And President Moore, anything else? Does that conclude your?
That's it.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board members? We'll start with Commissioner Lawrence on Zoom. Go ahead.
Yes, President Moore, the Edmonds election, it passed 13% over, and looking at the Breyer, when they passed theirs, 93%.
Yeah.
Mount Lake Terrace 78%. And I'm going to attribute the at least 13%, if not more, to you guys going out there. I think that got us the 13% we needed there. Otherwise, it might have been pretty dicey. So kudos to you guys. Appreciate the hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments, Commissioner.
Thank you. Any other questions for President Moore?
Commissioner Kenny, can I make one statement?
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to add, I forgot. I was listening to the public comment, obviously, where the gals were talking about the fireworks and asking firefighters, if there's a way we can help or whatever. I would say if we can, we're willing to help in however we can, getting messaging out, even on our platforms, to the communities out there that, these things have been banned.
Great. Thank you, President Moore. Okay, I think that concludes the union report. Thank you, President Moore.
Yep, thank you.
All right, that moves us forward on the agenda to item number 10, which is unfinished business, and that starts with the City of Linwood TIF analysis. Chief Eastman, and we have, I believe, Catherine Getz from Burke Consulting online. I'll turn this over to start with Chief Eastman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Kenny. So we engaged Burke for a couple reasons. One is we've talked organizationally. We've had briefs on TIF before, and the City of Linwood has a TIF that's moving forward, and they still have work to do within the city before the end of the month to determine whether they actually put it in ordinance or not. And we had Burke do two things. One is to help provide us a foundation of what TIFs are, what they're not, so we actually understand the TIF legislation and what it does, how it works, and then we had them do a little bit of analysis on the work that City of Linwood had Mr. Stowe and his consulting group do, partially to validate and look and as it turned, and Catherine will kind of give you her update on that. And so what I'd like to do is you have the PowerPoint, because I didn't actually get it in the packet, and it's mostly for Catherine to go through an outline. I'll share that on her behalf, and I'm going to have Catherine kind of go over the high level of her TIF analysis, and it's both education and to look at what Linwood did and provide examples. Most importantly, on the fact that there's a way to maintain revenue wholeness that's a little bit, and it's confusing at some level until you get your arms around it. And so Catherine's going to go over at that too. And then Richard also is on, and I know we've got an executive session later on tonight, but if there's questions that are legal in nature that Catherine would like to defer to legal counsel, she will do that. And so Richard can ask the very specific legal questions. And with that, I'll share my screen and I'll let Catherine give her presentation to the board.
Very good. Thank you. And good
Okay.
evening, Ms. Getz.
Hi, Chief. Hi, Commissioners. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, as Chief said, I'm Catherine Getz. I'm with Burt Consulting. We've worked with you all before, and we're happy to help out with this analysis of the proposed TIF for the city of Linwood. So, as Chief mentioned, the city put together an analysis that they're required to do, and he asked if we could review it, review the findings, and make some independent conclusions about the potential impact to South County Fire, and also provide that background and context that he mentioned as well. Next slide. So I just included just an objective for tonight is to hopefully achieve a shared understanding of the impact of a TIF on South County Fire. So I'll just go through a few highlights of the analysis, which you have, but just to sort of hit on some key points, and I'm happy to answer any questions either at any point or we can do that at the end. Next slide. So a little bit of background on the tax increment financing program. It's pretty new in Washington. Other states have it, but it's been around since 2021 when the state legislature created it. So more and more cities and counties and towns, port districts, they're interested in potentially using it. So there's more analysis going over to the state for review. So it can be used by cities, towns, counties, or port districts, or some combination of those. So the sponsoring jurisdiction, which in this case would be the city of Linwood, designates a tax increment area around the site of public improvements. And then the property tax revenue that's generated in that area, both from growth in the existing value and new construction, goes to the city. And then the city uses that to pay for these public improvements. Each taxing district, like South County Fire, receives the portion of its regular property tax produced by your levy rate based on the base value of the real property located in the increment area. So on the next slide, we're trying to sort of help illustrate this a little bit, but the sponsoring jurisdiction, so the city will receive a portion of the regular property tax levied by each taxing district, so like South County Fire. So junior taxing districts are therefore redirecting a portion of their property tax to the area. And this graphic, we're trying to show how it works. So the maximum total levy is calculated, and then a portion is allocated over to the tax increment area. And then the rest stays with the taxing district. Next slide. Yeah, just a little bit about the city's proposed tax increment area. It's almost 68 acres. The total assessed value is about $177 million. So this is 0.29% of South County Fire's total assessed value for tax year 2025. So a mitigation plan is not required. That's required if the analysis indicates that the increment area will impact at least 20% of the assessed value in the RFA, for example. The city prepared some development scenarios based on some projects that are currently in the planning stages for development and other development that they expect to occur if they're able to complete these public infrastructure projects. I'll just finish this slide and then I see there's a question. So just noting that the development includes over 5,000 residential units, 750 hotel rooms, and nearly 900,000 square feet of retail space. So South County Fire will need to provide service to this new development, and the chief and staff can determine if that might require additional staffing and potentially capital investments in order to maintain its level of service in this area. Commissioner Lawrence?
Commissioner Lawrence, do you have a question?
Yes, but
Go ahead.
go ahead and finish. I just want to get my hand up so I can.
Oh, okay.
That's first.
Sure.
He's getting in line first.
Okay. Okay, you could go ahead to the next slide. So we used the city's analysis, and then we modeled a few scenarios to see how much revenue could be directed to the tax increment area. And our baseline estimate is similar to the result in the city's analysis. So in this scenario, oh, and also note, we included the EMS levy. I know there was some question about that. We've reached out to the Department of Revenue, and I was told that they are looking into it, and I haven't yet received a response. So we did the analysis on the EMS levy, but we've separated it out so you can see both amounts. So in the baseline scenario, the regular levy would redirect about $13 million, and the EMS levy would redirect about $5.5 million. So over the total 25-year period, this is less than 1% of South County Fire's total revenue. So a mitigation plan is not required, and the share of revenue is pretty small, but that doesn't mean South County Fire wouldn't be impacted. We did some kind of examples of what might happen. For example, if the EMS levy rate were to increase in a given year, 2029, it will provide additional revenue for South County Fire and for the increment area, because the amount apportioned to the increment area is the share of South County Fire's total levy. We also kind of looked at if the value of new construction is lower than projected, South County Fire would redirect less revenue, and then conversely, if there were a higher level of new development than projected, then South County Fire would redirect more revenue to the increment area. Next slide. This is a summary. It's also in the report, just showing the different scenarios that we looked at and the estimated impact for the general levy and the EMS levy. So the amount that would be directed to the increment area depends on the value of the development and South County Fire's levy rate. Next slide. Okay, so we come to, as Chief mentioned, we come to this question of what's the real impact? Is the junior taxing district kept whole? And the city's analysis finds a positive difference of about $224,000 over the 25-year term of the tax increment area, which is not a lot. It's about 1.5% of the total amount redirected to the increment area, and then less than 0.1% of the annual property tax that South County Fire receives. But the way, as we've learned and talked through with the county assessor's office, the way this can happen is the way the maximum total levy is calculated. So we tried to also show it with these graphics. But with TIF, the maximum total levy is the prior year levy plus a 1% increase, plus the increase in the value of the increment area times the prior year's levy rate. The amount that gets directed to the increment area is based on the current year levy rate, which is typically lower in years, as assessed value has been increasing recently, over many years, because of the way that property tax is calculated. So there is a small gain for the taxing district for South County Fire. So these estimates show that South County Fire will receive a small benefit with TIF. It doesn't receive revenue in proportion to the growth in the increment area and the associated demand for services. And we just wanted to note that property tax from new construction is a benefit to a taxing district and helps fund the increased demand associated with that development. So South County Fire and other junior taxing districts would be required to provide services to the new development, but you wouldn't receive the revenues contributed by this growth. They'd be directed over to the increment area. Next slide. And then we just wanted to note a couple of potential risks and opportunities. The South County Fire could direct additional revenue to the increment area if you were to impose a levy lid lift, or if the increment area value increases more quickly than projected. But the city could end the TIF sooner than planned if it receives additional revenue and has sufficient funding. Say it may take out, it may want to issue debt to pay for the improvements, and as soon as it's able to pay that off, it could end the TIF, for example. South County Fire and the city could agree on a voluntary mitigation plan. For example, South County Fire may identify capital needs based on the projected growth, and these could be included in the city's project list. So that's all I have for slides. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Lawrence, did you have a question?
Yes,
Go ahead.
or like a statement. Catherine, thank you for the information. When Linwood representatives and their consultant visited with us, this is kind of like the first we'd heard about it in any kind of detail. And I thought, well, this seems to be like a legalized way to steal money from other people. And the consultant very condescendingly said something like, well, they've been around for 40 years, you know, basically implying that I was some kind of turnip seed that didn't know what's going on. So I did a bit of research. These TIFs, when they started, they were for cities to redevelop some impoverished areas and renovate. And that was the cities. They took it as their project. And I understand how it works. The TIF is so that developers come in and be assured that they're, you know, and the people that loan the money, they're going to get paid off, because the cities, they don't get the increase in revenue taxes either. It's got to go to the TIF. What Washington State did was a perversion of this concept, and they have basically it's taxation without representation. I think a couple hundred years ago we fought a little battle over that, and so they're doing it like, oh well, the school district somehow got wind of it and got themselves exempted from this. And even though it doesn't add up too much, and then maybe in 25 years, whenever, well, we really benefit from this increased value, massively increased value. That's true, but they didn't ask us. We didn't have a vote in it. We didn't have a say in it. So fundamentally, it's corrupt. It's a corrupt concept. The state, who passed it, where the money came from. Well, maybe that public, that fellow that does litigation over public accountability. To get in on that. So that was a perversion. And so, do you have anything to add about that? Because we understand the numbers, but you know, do you have any opinion on that, or maybe that we'll have to wait for Rich on that?
Well, I'll just say it is true that you, as junior taxing district, is redirecting revenue over to the TIA. I think it's also true that you are you're consulted, but you're not a decision maker in that.
We weren't even consulted. They just
Well, at a minimum,
like my point in time that they consult us, you know.
Yeah. I'm not super familiar. I'll probably let Richard handle this, but I'm not super familiar about the origin of it in Washington, or kind of how the legislation was crafted. But
Okay, are there other questions for Ms. Getz from the board members? Commissioner Teoflag.
One of the suggestions is to add like capital improvements into the TIF's project list. So that could mean like the TIF tax money could pay for like a fire truck, for example.
yeah, I think so. I think there, you say that you identified a need. I'm not sure about trucks, but I would have to check on that. But if you, for example, needed a station one day along the road because you would need to serve an area, that could be part of the project list, I believe. I was just looking at there, I think I included the example in the report, which was down in Ridgefield, where I think they voluntarily agreed to, I think, provide some land or something like to help the fire department because they knew that they were going to be impacted in the future. So I'd have to get a little more detail on what could be included, but I think, yeah, it could, capital purchases could be.
And then is there like a deadline that this would have to be done by for this Linwood project?
I believe, and Richard, you maybe want to confirm, but I believe the city's project list has to be identified when the TIF is approved. They can't just go back and add projects to it.
Yep, that's correct.
And do we know what that the estimated date of approval is?
So
I
they're
think in May.
planning to approve it sometime before the end of the month to take effect June 1. And there's a deadline. It's got to be effective June 1. I mean, there's some timelines that they have to meet for the revenue streams and all that.
Okay, thank you.
Liaison Swisher.
I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. And by the way, hi, Catherine.
Hi, Paula.
So City of Linwood does this TIF, essentially creating more living space, retail space, and everything, which brings in more people, more incidents. And for 25 years, all the funding from that goes to this, and the fire agency doesn't get that money. Yet we're expected to provide services, people, equipment, fire station if there's one needed near it, or even the expansion of ones that already exist. Is that correct?
That's how I understand it.
I'm not very impressed by that. I'm kind of leaning toward Mr. Lawrence is his thoughts for a change instead of him just going after mine.
Liaison Swisher, anything else? No. So, okay. So I do have a couple of questions. Ms. Getz, I know you weren't here when we talked about this last time, but I didn't hear you mention it today. My understanding from Chief Eastman when we last talked about it is while the amount that goes to the TIF area from our future taxation, we are not able to access, there is the ability to raise taxes on everybody else. Essentially, everybody else makes up the difference so that we're not actually out the money, but the area itself is not paying for it. Everybody else makes up the difference so that we are essentially whole vis-a-vis our budget. It's just the residents of every other city and the unincorporated area end up paying the amount that the TIF area doesn't pay, because the TIF area money is going to pay off these bonds. Am I wrong on that?
Let me think. Let me make sure I'm understanding. So you have your maximum annual levy, and that will increase year over year with the 1%, and then the value of this, and that will determine your levy rate that other property owners will pay. And you will get the maximum total levy. You just would carve out this amount that the increment area is generating, and that will go over to the city for the increment area, and you would keep the rest. I'm not sure if I'm really saying back to you what you're saying.
Maybe Chief Eastman can chime in
So,
on that.
so the way I understand it, and Catherine, correct me if I have a misunderstanding of it, is if you go to page 8 of the slides, so there's how we determine our maximum levy for the following year. So, for example, without a tip, we get what we had last year plus 1%, and that becomes our new maximum limit that we can levy. That's how we do it today. With a TIF, there's an additional addition to that. So you take our maximum levy plus the 1% becomes your new maximum levy for the following year. And that's the max you can go. When there's a TIF involved, you get the maximum, what you collected the previous year, plus the 1%. And then there's another plus, which is the increased value of the tax increment area divided by 1,000 times the previous year's levy. So they look at it very similar to new construction. That's how
Right.
they calculate it. That gets then added to your maximal, your max,
Mhm.
and then that then gets spread over everybody in the RFA. So Commissioner Kenny, when you take that increase of the TIA value, add it to your maximum levy rate, and then we collect the maximum levy rate, it gets spread over the whole RFA. So you are correct, is how they've designed the TIF and how we are made whole, or as close to whole as you can, is they add the increased value of the TIF area, treat it like new construction, the previous year's levy rate, add it to your max, and then that becomes the new max that if you take the full max like we do when we add the 1%, that gets distributed over everybody in the RFA. And then the TIF dollars outside anything greater than the 177 million goes to the tax increment area, and the 777 million comes to us. So I'm hoping, Kathleen, I'm correct on that. And Commissioner Kenny, I think your understanding is correct.
Right, which basically means that we are vis-a-vis the money we would be receiving overall is kept whole, but only by everybody else outside the TIF paying for it, including other residents of the city. But the TIF doesn't pay for it. But that donut hole that is the TIF, that money is going somewhere else in the donut hole. It's going to pay off the bonds in the TIF, but everybody else is filling it in with additional taxes from everywhere else to pay for it. So from our perspective, looking at the overall dollars, it's all going to work out, but it's going to work out on the backs of everybody else. That's the rub, where it's like, and in my mind, that gets to the, I would say, well, is that fair? But, fair is relative because that's what the statute provides for. And it's like, well, the legislature's determined that's fair, whether you think that's fair or not. So but it does seem a little bit odd, but it kind of is what it is. Commissioner Frenhoff. And then we'll come back to Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, Chief, how does, in this particular instance, because this is how I perceive the world, our fire benefit charge really displaces a good portion of the fee to commercial entities and sort of levels the playing ground when it comes to residential. So in this particular scenario, since we haven't talked about the role of the fire benefit charge, and because this will be a good portion of it will be commercial, how does that factor in terms of the RFA receiving, funds that would come from a different port? So to speak?
The benefit charge is not impacted by the TIF. So there isn't, the benefit charge stays intact and whole. So the growth that happens once they get on the tax roll and we get assessed the benefit charge, they would pay the benefit charge just like any other property based on their classification type and their size would pay. So I guess at the end, one of the benefits we have by having a benefit charge is the third 50 cents in the fire levy, which would be part of the tax incremental financing and redirected. We don't have that, and we have the benefit charge instead, and that benefit charge is not impacted by the TIF.
Not impacted, but it will support the RFA once they establish the new commercial area.
Yeah,
So in some ways, we're going to get it back.
Yeah,
but only not through the same channel.
Yeah, I think there's we had a really good conversation last, and I think Commissioner Kenny, we talked it all the way around. Is growth in the long run provides us benefit. Growth is good for everybody. And we don't have the ability to provide growth. That's the county and the cities that we serve, right? The unincorporated area. And that growth comes from, county actions, and the growth in the cities come from city actions. And so, the way I look at it is growth is good for everybody. And so I get the challenges with how tax incremental financing works, and I understand that. When it comes to how it negatively impacts us, and we talk about capital improvements, this TIF is not big enough to generate a fire station. The way we're set up, I mean, because part of going down that path is you have to make a good argument. We have a capital cities plan. The reality is we're set where we need stations is already predetermined. And what they're doing with this specific TIF doesn't really impact because of the size and 7,000 residents or 7,000 additional people it's a lot, but in the context of the RFA as a whole, we have the capacity to actually do that with the planning we've already done. So that's kind of as we continue to talk about this, I do not believe this will be the only TIF this RFA will be part of in the years to come. I think it's a tool that the county and the cities, ports can all use to spur growth. And again, if you look at the current economic condition, everybody's in. And how you can do it, and the fact you can do it by city ordinance or county ordinance, doesn't require the vote of the people. You just have to have the funding. It's something that we're probably going to be dealing with in the future, not just the one we have. And so, part of having Catherine review this and Catherine give us a draft document that explains what TIFs are is because I think this isn't the last time we're going to talk about it. And continue to have conversations and impact and all those other pieces with it. So, but you're right, the benefit charge is not affected by it, and some of the growth they're using, the way the benefit charge does, they get a larger burden of that funding mechanism.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, let Commissioner Wittes go first there.
Commissioner Wittes, did you want to? No? Okay.
I don't
Commissioner
have any
Lawrence?
questions.
No? Okay. Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, so I had a question about the benefit charge there. Commissioner Fernhoff broached that subject there. I'm wondering, and see, I think I heard that as they build the structures, as they get finished, there's going to be more area, and our benefit charge income will go up from that. And the TIF can't say anything about that. We get more tax revenue from the benefit charge as they expand 3 or 4 times in square footage.
Yeah, so Commissioner Lawrence, the benefit charge is not affected. So as growth happens, when the board establishes what the benefit charge is for the following year, it gets proportioned out according to, how we set that up.
So is there an estimate on how much, if we keep even the current benefit charge rate, as they grow, that are we going to come out even Steven? Because okay, if our taxpayers didn't get a choice in okaying this sleight of hand movement here, that we're going to come out even with the benefit charge as they grow in size. That's just a number of thing.
So Commissioner, it's not simple math like that. So can we calculate some of that? Yes. I don't believe just, and you're asking me off the cuff, I don't think it makes us whole in the end, but I think it allows us some opportunity as we look at future revenue strategy for the RFA, the board has some flexibility to maybe make some of that impact less as a result of being able to utilize the benefit charge. And it becomes far more complex to provide you what you're specifically asking for. I just know that you have the ability to do some things with our funding, specifically the EMS levy, the general levy, and the benefit charge but I don't think it's going to make it even, no. But it does get you closer.
Thank you.
I did want to ask, I think that one of the things there may not be time to do it, but we really need an answer on the EMS levy. Because if the fire benefit charge and the EMS levy are both exempted, that takes us a long way in the direction we'd like to be. The one question that I have had come up since last time, which I don't think I've asked, is what about future voter approved bonds? How are they impacted in the TIF area? Like, let's say in a year or two, we did a voted on bond for all of South County Fire. How is the TIF, and the TIF goes into effect, this month or something. How does that impact?
I believe they're exempt. They're not
Oh, they're
impacted by the TIF. They're an excess levy, looked at as an excess levy. I'm going to look at, I see Richard nodding yes, but they're not part of, it's just your general levy and your EMS levy. So they're exempt from implications of the TIF.
Because we might want to think about that too. So I did want to, I guess, remind everybody about the argument that our friends from Linwood made last time, which is the growth pays for growth argument, which is that without the TIF and the general construction project or creation of this kind of foundation upon which private industry will build these various things that will have more value, that you wouldn't have these increases in AV. I mean, we're talking about these increases of AV and these charts over 25 years and all of this this increase in millions and millions of dollars. Well, think of those properties as they stand now. If they just sit there and nothing's developed, you'll get what we have today, and maybe it'll go up a little bit each year, but it's not going to go up exponentially. So the idea that putting in 5-story apartment buildings that have more value and have all these people living there, that will increase the value. That's where the increased value comes from. But you've got to have some way to essentially seed the project to get private industry to do it. They might do it otherwise because it's close to the Sound Transit transit station, light rail station, but they might not. And this is a way that jumpstarts it in an organized fashion. And so there is that argument that we're not, because we keep arguing, we keep saying, well, they're taking money, our future money from us. And that is one way to look at it. But another way to look at it is you're never going to get that money if there's no development. If nothing is done, then this area will just sit there. And some of the area is kind of, it's older, shall we say. It's not generating lots and lots of value. And this is a way to create that, but somebody's got to create it, and South County Fire is not going to create it. We're just concerned about the fact that that's going to create all this demand from all these people that will come to live there. And that we're not talking about 1 year or 5 years that we lose that money. We're talking about 25 years. That's a long time. And a long time we could have to provide service into that area. So that's kind of the balance of it. But there is a counter argument that, we've got nothing to complain about because as of today, you're not getting anything. There is no development. So what are you worried about? It's about this future development. So that would be the counter argument from our friends in Linwood. Before we go back to Commissioner Lawrence, other commissioners who have not spoken, go ahead.
Yeah, as I've kind of indicated before, this is us investing in the communities that we serve to help it grow and to help grow, I guess, in the long term, our revenue. So I agree with it. There are, prickly parts, but we keep looking at this in terms of duration. Yes, it's for 25 years, but they could do this for 10 years. The cost to do the development would be the same. Our portion for responsibility would be the same. It would just be over a truncated kind of amortization schedule, so to speak. So at the end of the day, looking at the dollar figures, I think does us a little bit better service than looking necessarily at the time period. And with that being 1% of what we're seeing, if I understand correctly, 1% of what we're expecting to have for our budget, it's not a lot. It is something that once spread out across the RFA, our economy of scale absorbs at a rate that is almost imperceptible probably to the standard homeowner that doesn't live in that area. So I don't think it's an undue burden upon them. Yes, there's going to be people that don't live here in 20 years but that's the case everywhere. Communities invest the dollars today from the residents in the development for the future, whether or not those residents live there or not, because other people are doing the same things in their home areas, and they move into our areas. Yeah, they didn't pay for the developments that made it so nice to be here once they move in, but they were paying for it. And in the grand scheme of things, this all comes out in the wash. So I think unless we can actually demonstrate that this is going to cause a hardship to us, whether it's manpower needed or equipment needed, it's something where we're part of this community of junior taxing districts that overlap with the city. And thus, we have a responsibility to help invest in the communities we serve as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowland. Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, well, the RFA, I don't think anywhere it says that we are an investment company or should think about investing. So, and it's a slippery slope. The people in Briar, Mountain Lake Terrace, the unincorporated Mill Creek, they weren't asked to invest in Linwood. Linwood should do their own investing with their own money, with their own taxpayers. It's a slippery slope. It's obscene. Legally, you were, Catherine, you were using the word mitigation. What about, were you meaning was that in lieu of the word arbitration? Because we don't have the ability even to arbitrate this? Is that a question for Rich, maybe?
Well, I was using the word mitigation, which is in the statute. And I believe that means that they have to somehow work with you to ensure that you are not adversely impacted. That's how I understand it, either by including a capital investment on that would help you or something to that effect. But Richard, you could probably add here.
So Catherine explained earlier that the duty of the city to enter into mitigation negotiations with South County Fire is not triggered because the size of the TIF is not large enough. It's a fairly high standard, 20% of your AV, which is not going to be triggered for South County Fire. So you're in this realm of approaching the city if you wish to enter into voluntary mitigation agreement. The city has no obligation to even talk about that, but as a partner, they may be willing to do so. And that really couldn't involve anything. There was a question earlier, could we fund, could we use funds from the city to purchase a fire engine? I mean, really anything is on the table through a voluntary mitigation process, but that's not really covered by the statute. That's just an opportunity that presents itself prior to the ordinance being passed by the city. Once the ordinance has been passed, then there's a challenge period that's available for 30 days, and we can talk about that in executive session. But that's your
The
opportunity to
legislature,
negotiate.
then, they sewed it up pretty tight. Basically, they can steal other people's money. That's the same old thing, it's other people's money. They don't have a say in it. It's taxation without representation. It's obscene. All right, thank you.
And I guess I would just, maybe for Chief Eastman, I would just ask, the TIF area itself is the only area that is having this amount reduced of our fire levy and at this point, the EMS levy. And that's in the overall square footage of the city of Linwood, it is a small part of the city of Linwood. Everybody else in the city of Linwood, like everybody else in the RFA, is going to make up the difference for that TIF area. So it's not just Linwood versus every other jurisdiction. It's Linwood in my as I'm framing it, the TIF area versus everywhere else, including everybody else in Linwood's going to pay for the TIF area too. So Linwood is, maybe one way to phrase it is penalizing their residents in order to pay for this TIF area because of the value they put on this TIF to create the infrastructure for this future development, which they believe will have other benefits to the residents of the city of Linwood. It just isn't necessarily going to have benefit to the other cities that we serve in South County Fire, but it might have some tertiary benefits.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, and when you look at the library district, I mean, it becomes the web, right? And Linwood, affects their general levy too, right? And so, they fall under the same, my understanding is they fall under the same rules we do with their general levy, right? And so the library district's the same, right? So, and the ability, and again, the ability to remain whole works for everybody. And so, and again, for us, and I guess this is small, it's $177 million area. To put in perspective, we're almost $80 billion of AV, right? So we're never going to get to a place where a $200 million TIF actually hits the threshold. Now, I haven't talked to Richard about if we have 10 of them, what does that mean? Because those become different numbers. But even 10, when you look at 200 million apiece, doesn't trigger a threshold of 20% over AV. And so part of this is again, this is small, but every jurisdiction can have 2 of them. And there's several jurisdictions, that we operate within the RFA. And so, again, this has been the point of what we're doing is exactly what we're trying to do is make sure that we get our arms around what a TIF is and again, what the challenges are with them and where we can go, what we can do, what the statute says. And one of the challenges we can talk about voluntary mitigation, we can talk about those, but it's really, it's when you go, in my opinion, as the fire chief, we have to have something tangible to go mitigate. Right. And if we have a mechanism within the legislation to at least economically make us as close to whole as we can, even though we may not like how we do it. What's the next place for me to go bring the mitigation needs forward to the board, and then take those mitigation issues back to when you're talking fire engines and stations and stuff, when they become a very small impact and 7,000 people may cost us 5-6 calls a day or a year. It's hard to make that argument with one. The challenge is we got to be thinking what happens when others come, and the impact may be different if now we're working on the 12th one. And now you're talking different call demand, different things. And so those are things staff's thinking about. And when we talk about mitigation, I think we have to have something tangible to go mitigate to be because they're partners of ours. In the end game, this is an issue, but Linwood's a good partner of ours, and we want to make sure when we bring mitigation, we bring something that's really tangible that a partner, right, works through with the issue with us. And the other piece, Commissioner Kenny, I think you bring it up or have talked about it, is we still have really good relationships with our cities and the folks that are part of the RFA, and realize the TIF is here. The relationship is still here. And staff has been very conscientious of that. Is we can disagree with the TIF, that's great. And we can have those conversations and have the issue conversation, but we've been very, very deliberate in making sure that, this is this, but it's in our world, it's not impacting the relationship we have with the city of Linwood, the city of Mukilteo, or the city of Edmonds, any of them that decide to go down this path. We've been keeping that in focus because I think that's important for the long. And we're going to have other things that come up where we may be on a different side of an issue with our respective partner cities, and realize that's real. We need to work through that, but we have to make sure we keep the relationship intact.
Liaison Swisher, and then Commissioner Chan, and then Commissioner Lawrence if he still wants to. Go ahead, Liaison Swisher.
As one of the other cities that's going to be expected to fork over more money to keep the RFA whole, I will speak on behalf of my citizens that I think it's crap. And I'm going to guess that there are a lot of other citizens within the unincorporated county and in these other cities that are going to feel the same way. That for us to have to pick up the bill, especially for some of us who are still fairly new to the RFA, that is an ask that is it shouldn't be happening. And I know that it's out of you guys' hand, but that is ridiculous for the rest of us to have to pick up the and I'll speak specifically for my city. We're little. What Linwood gonna offer us anything? No, they offer us their rollover crime that comes into our city. They don't, their traffic that goes through our city. It doesn't, this does not benefit us at all if our citizens are having to pick up the extra. And clearly, I am not a happy camper.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at this here. I think the character of the kind of follow-up policy, the cost of service. Right now, we have 750 hotel room, 900,000 square feet of retail place, and 5,000 new residents. Which one in general, forget about TIF and all that stuff, which one will cost us more to service? Now, also bear in mind that we have a benefit charge, right? We can charge much more on the commercial square footage and everything else, which we don't really get that much. If you have resident, then you have the medical and EMS and all that stuff. And hopefully the retail service, you don't read that much of EMS and also now hotel room, those are not constant resident. They're going through, they're not 100% occupied anyway. So you tell me, which would you rather see? Because I don't want to, the problem is that increased service, we got to think about that to serving these people.
For us, the population increase, which is what causes call demand, right? Now, a hotel that's new, right? Depending on what hotel it is,
Right.
call demand is less. And we have hotels in the RFA that see our services on a very regular basis, right? Some of that depends on the demographics that it's where it's built, and you know I'm not gonna say the quality of the hotel, but what hotel motel, right? And the different clientele generate different call demands. So, in the context of what the TIF is looking at for improvements, the increased service demand for the RFA is going to be the residents. It's going to be on the EMS side of the house. I can't predict fires, but if you have
Right.
a major fire in one of the apartment complexes, obviously that's going to be those are going to increase service demand from a different perspective from us. But for this area, it's going to be the EMS demand that's going to be the largest.
So ideally, they can build another Outwood Mall. It doesn't really increasing our cost of service, right? If the tip is really they build, well, I think for Linwood too, they probably like to have that another mall getting all the retail sales tax and all that, right?
So the caveat I would say is general retail and commercial doesn't, depending on, and I'll be very broad, doesn't have a lot of call demand potential.
Right,
Some do, some don't, but they do provide a huge risk.
right.
And when we do have an event, right, there's specialty resources needed as a result of, right? So, we'll take the fire we had last night. I had 3 aerial devices flowing water at one time. We have 2, right? So as you do things, the service demand impact may not be how many calls we go on. It may require me to add an additional ladder in service within the RFA to meet the readiness perspective we need as a result of the growth that's coming. So there's a couple different ways to answer that, Commissioner Chan. Some of it is there's going to be readiness costs that we need to gear up for. And then you have what's actually going to happen day to day. And you kind of got to look at them together because they impact us across the board.
But hopefully, but also too, for a benefit charge, we're going to able to charge a commercial property much higher rate. That kind of balances it out, right?
I guess I would say,
Well,
as we continue to mature the benefit charge, to a certain extent, there's a larger proportion of the benefit charge on multifamily and commercial than residential. And again, yeah, so there's a certain shift that goes there. I don't think it's always as dramatic and large as we think.
I think there's some kind of, maybe CFO can do a little calculation for what was the ideal balance in there. Okay.
Commissioner Rowland and then Ms. Getz, and then we'll try and bring it to an end. Commissioner Rowland.
This is a question for Ms. Getz, actually. In your analysis, the project analysis that the city did, is it realistic? Is it within lines of what you're seeing? Is there anything in it that is either problematic, like, I guess, playing around with things to make it fit where it wouldn't normally in the law? Is it above board? Is there any concerns that you have?
No, I don't. We didn't look into their development assumptions at all, and if those are realistic or that piece of it. We focused on using those assumptions and what they concluded in the analysis, and I can track what they're doing, and I think it makes sense. It makes sense based on our conversations with the county assessor's office and their approach to this. So I found it a little confusing, but that's my only complaint about it, I guess.
Fair enough. Thank you. And then this, I want to talk to Rich Davis about this. When we were talking about arbitration and kind of TIFs in relationship with fire districts and regional fire authorities, for all the rest of your commissioners, if you want to look it up later, it's RCW 39-114-020. It's that section 5 that talks about the mitigation plans. And my understanding from reading this is that there's two kind of clauses here as to when we could trigger these mitigation plans. One is if the project analysis they did was over 20%, as you stated before. But the second part after that says, in short, or if the fire service agency's annual report or other governing board adopted capital facility plan demonstrates an increase in the level of service directly related to the increased development in the increment area. Those would be the two things that could trigger the negotiations for a mitigation plan. If I'm wrong on that, please feel free to let me know. If it's something you have to review, that's fine. You don't have to answer now. But reading this, they talk about annual reports, not the annual report preceding the approval of the TIF. So as this thing goes on in the next 25 years, it seems to me that there is potential for these mitigation plans to be able to be entered into as new needs arise that maybe we don't know now. Again, if I'm wrong on this, please let us know. But that does give me a little bit of, at least a little peace of mind, knowing that we don't know how this is going to go. But if it starts to be something that we can point to and say, hey, there is an increased need of service, there is an increased cost related to this development, and specifically that we would have some outlet to get that rectified. Is that your understanding? Am I way off base?
That's an interesting interpretation. I have not heard that before. This, what I had understood, and I'll have to read it a little more closely now that you've brought this up, is that this would need to be triggered at the commencement of the TIF prior to the ordinance being passed by the sponsor. So I will take a closer look at that and get back to you. But yeah. Okay.
And then I just wanted to kind of in general talk about, or at least clarify, I do look at this from an investment standpoint. When it comes to tax dollars, they can be used for two things, ongoing costs or investments in infrastructure in the areas that we service. And I think that often when we look at taxes, when they're being used to finance the growth of our communities, they are investments in our communities. They truly are. They are what keep our communities growing, what keep them healthy and strong, and what really puts the money that we're we're collecting today towards a future that we all want to continue to live in. We've seen plenty of cities or counties that haven't made proper investments in their future, and then they end up down the road with costs that they just can't keep up with, or growth that hasn't occurred, and now inflation or other pressures are coming to bear upon them. So like I said, I know it's a new pill for us to swallow, and it doesn't necessarily taste so good going down the first time. But I think as some of the cities beyond Linwood start exploring this, we're going to see this again start to balance out as far as responsibility. I don't know if that's a good thing for the those that live in unincorporated Snohomish, because if Snohomish County doesn't do one of these TIFs inside of the RFA, they have to pay for the TIFs outside of the RFA, right? So there's no perfect taxing system, or we'd already have it. I think that this is probably the best we can do when we look at these overlapping jurisdictions, and I'm at least glad that thought was put into this. And if there's anything that we see in here that really needs to be changed, I think we need to discuss it at the intergovernmental level and speak with legislators about it to make sure that as these things are becoming more common, the legislation, if it needs to change, does get that feedback into it. So thank you, guys.
Ms. Getz, did you have a last comment for us? I know you had your
Yeah,
hand.
I just wanted to clarify, and I should have, when you asked it earlier, I should have been more clear, but I don't think that, when Paula was talking about Breyer, is a member of the RFA, the rest of the RFA wouldn't, I don't think they'd really be adversely impacted. They're not, I don't know that they're picking up any slack, as it were. It's just you don't get the value in the increment area that's just sent over to the city. Unless you mean perhaps that you find you have additional costs to serve the area, and then that you'd have to absorb those within the RFA, and maybe that's what you're referring to.
Catherine, I think she's referring to the addition of your maximum levy rate when you take the increased value and the improvements in the TIF area and add that to increase your taxable limit. And then that gets spread over the whole RFA is what Paul is referring to, right? So it's when they add the additional increase in value to the TIA, and then they times that by the previous levy rate and add it to your maximum. And then if the board chooses to take that new maximum for their levy rate for the year, then that increase that comes from the TIF gets spread across everybody within the RFA is what is kind of where Paul's at. In the context of what we're talking about, I want to say, and I don't know if this, well, it's an increase, and that burden of that making our whole gets spread across everybody else is what Paul is referring to.
Okay, but your maximum levy is going to grow more quickly than it would without a TIF, and that would impact your levy rate, which may decrease more quickly. So an individual property owner basis, there's some impact there.
Right.
Okay, that's a good discussion and very much appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Getz.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And so it's time for our break. Why don't we take a 10-minute break till 9-minute break to 10 to 9. So we'll, without objection, we'll be in a brief recess and come back to at 10 to 9. We'll hit the Edmonds annexation checklist next steps. Thank you.
You're going back from?
Yeah. Okay, we are back from our recess and moving forward then in the agenda to item number 10B, which is the Edmonds next steps on the Edmonds annexation. Chief Eastman.
again, Edmonds, congratulations to everybody. Um, I will tell you, it's not very often in somebody's career where 29 years ago, we had a vision when I first became part of District 11. Shortly thereafter, became union leadership, was part of consolidating District 1 and District 11, and then had the vision to regionalize South County. I was there at the beginning, and I got to watch the end. Not very many people get to do that in their career, and I did. And I would say that it's a great bookend. My career has been unbelievably fantastic, and as I'm nearing the end and looking at retirement, I'm very humbled by what we've been able to accomplish in this organization. I'm very privileged to be able to have been a part of it from the beginning to the end. Not everybody gets to say that. It's taken me a while to get my feet back under me. I was talking to Commissioner Kenny and Commissioner Lawrence in agenda planning that it's been really hard to start what's next, because we're starting the plan for the next 20 years of the organization when we talk what we do with the organizational roadmap. And I've come to the realization I get to watch the very, very beginning, and I'm not going to be able to watch the end. And I've been a little bit spoiled because my career has been able to start from the very, very beginning and a vision that this organization had and watched it complete. So just a point of privilege is with Edmonds. And I think the fact that we did not have a single precinct that voted less than 50% in the Edmonds annex, in the Edmonds vote, says a whole lot. And again, I hope President Moore's still on, because it's a result of what the men and women in this organization do every single day. It's what Christy and her team in risk management and education that they do. We are in, and people know who we are, and it's a testament to the folks that we employ that go out and do what we ask them to go do. We often get credit because we sit in the positions we're in, but we're put in a position to be able to be successful as a result of the work they do. And that map is key. There's not very many organizations that get to say on an initiative like this, with what happened with this ballot measure, that we were plus 50% in every single precinct that voted. Every single one. And there's not very many agencies that get to say that. And so, Pat, make sure you let your membership know that. That's a huge accomplishment organizationally, and it's years and years and years of accomplishment. So I just wanted to say that. I wasn't planning on it, but I couldn't help myself. So on with what the next steps are with the city of Edmonds. So you have a checklist that Richard helped me with about what's next to be done and what needs to be done prior to the 1st of June. And if you don't mind, I'll just quick go through it, and then I'm going to tell you, because I've got staff working on all sorts of things, and I'll let you know what they're doing. And I've got some meetings coming up at the end of the week that are all related to Edmonds. The CEPA review has been completed. We have 2 interlocal agreements. Well, a couple. One is the termination of the current ILA happens automatically at the end of May. The Edmonds ILA for fire code services, we both need to approve. As we look at this, and I was going to talk to Chair Kenny and Vice Chair Lawrence, staff for the Chiefs, we have the Chiefs conference is the 3rd week. And I think it's really important that we are there. And I'd like the board to consider, and Commissioner Kenny, that potentially we could make next week a special meeting. I'd like to be here in person when we get the ILAs, the fire code ILA and the Station 17 use agreement approved by the board as a form of formality to give to the mayor, so they can go through their process and have those executed by the 1st of June. I'd prefer not to do that when I'm remote. That's a conversation, Commissioner Kenny, we can have at the next agenda planning if that works for the board. We also have to work on the transfer title of Station 16 and 20. I'll work with legal counsel to make sure those quick claim deeds are filled out and signed by the city. we have to do the master bill of sale, which is all the furnishings and fixings in all three stations. And that will have to go through the process with the city of Edmonds. Records and material that's administratively transferred to South County Fire. I'll reach out to Amy Nay, and we'll work through that. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet. That probably takes a little bit longer than just June 1. Transport fees, if you remember in the ILA, the transport fees, we actually then collect them. And as part of the pre-annexation agreement, we agreed to reduce the cost of what they owe us for the next 7 months. So the city stays whole based on the ILA we had. CFO Bothwell is already working through that with the finance director of Edmonds. We start taking on the responsibility for Snow 911 June 1. CFO Bothwell has been working through that with 911. We had a little bit of a snafu with Breyer, I believe it was. And I think that's all been rectified, and we will ensure that we take on that responsibility. June 1. We'll also, I believe there's going to be a letter, Commissioner Kenny, from you requesting an appointed liaison, or we'll work through however that works, and we'll relay that back to the mayor. But I do know that Christie's been talking to Becky, who is going to become the mayor's executive assistant on some of these topics too. So some of those conversations and dialogues are already happening. And the only other piece that's not in this list is we've also agreed that we would cover the cost of DEM for 3 years. I have a meeting with DEM on Thursday. DEM on Thursday. Where I'd like to go with this is I'd like to make sure that we have a relationship under an ILA with DEM actually to pay the cost. And I want to have further dialogue with DEM. We're big enough now where we are the fire department that actually staffs CSF4 and does a lot of the functions and have for a decade and a half up at DEM, and figure out how we can be a member agency of DEM, have Lucia be our director of emergency management for our organization, just like she is at the cities. If we've learned anything, that when major events happen, the cities where everything's done anyway. And I think there's some benefits for the RFA if we look at how our contract cities, or not contract, sorry, bad slip, our member cities deal with DEM. Several of them have their own EOCs. That's really unmanageable for us to be able to participate in everybody's EOC. There's been a lot of conversations about, having the county have the main EOC, and one of the cities, i.e. Linwood, who just created a new one, have a backup EOC and just have to and utilize the spaces that are already computers and everything at, and utilize the 3 years that we cover the cost for Edmonds and DEM to figure out a way to maybe what that should look like for us moving further in the future. So I'd like to have an agreement with DEM, recognizing that we're the ones covering the cost and that we want to have additional conversations moving forward. And then there have to be a new ILA between the city and DEM to do the work that we're paying for. So I'm working through what that looks like. That may, because we're dealing with the county government may take a little longer than the 1st of June. But I do know they're working on the comprehensive plan, and DEM has actually included Edmonds in that conversation now as a result of the annexation passing. And so with that, I'll pause real quick. And Richard, did I miss anything, or do you want to add in clarifications?
I think you covered it, Chief.
And then, Chris, did I miss anything? I know you've been talking to the finance director about all the intricate details that he dealt with when the other cities annexed in and how we did that. And we learned some things. And so I think Chris is on top of it. I know Christie's been working with Becky. And then my plan is to reach out to the mayor before the end of the week and just go through this and let him know what I know and make sure he understands the same things that need to be ratified by the city. And then my intention would be is to bring the 2 ILAs forward at the next meeting for the board to approve. And then, put the rest of that and make sure the city has ones we approved, and then they'll approve it. And we'll work on the rest of it as we go, and with the time, a timeline of having everything completed by the 1st of June. Obviously, we'll have all the documents, and we probably won't do the title transfers at the county until after the 1st of June, but we'll have everything we can, and we'll keep the board up to date on what's going on. And I didn't realize how fast a turnaround that was going to be at the end, and I'm glad we're not transferring employees. So, so that's an update from staff and
Questions from the board for Chief Eastman on this? Yes, Commissioner Furnoff, then Commissioner Chad. Commissioner Furnoff.
Chief, thank you for the detailed report, and to those that are from Edmonds that are watching, welcome aboard. We're just so delighted to have you, and I think going forward, this is going to be an exciting opportunity for both parties to work together and expand, and I just want to make that comment. So thank you.
Commissioner Chan.
Well, I want to say, Chief Eastman, you can still watch what will happen. You can watch it from Minnesota and see the whole, and I think you shouldn't care about it. First of all, I really thank you for being here. And this is the question for Rich. I still remember my business law 101, and I still remember that day, particularly I was awake. It basically, quick claim deed is worth nothing. I can give you a quick claim deed on my, for the Space Needle, right? Because there's no ownership. So how does that work in the government wise? You got to have to get a title, encumbrances, and whatever things in there, right? Don't you need to at least go through the research, what they have in the whole thing?
You could get it. So a quitclaim deed essentially says, I'm giving you whatever title that I
Right.
have. If my title is encumbered, you get the encumbered title. If I have clear title, you get the clear title. So that's just how we've done these transactions in the past. And I think we did a check actually. I can't remember when it was, but looked at the title, found that it was clear. So that's, like I said, that's how we've done these transactions with the other contract cities.
Because in
That
our
have been
contract
external.
city, there's no transfer except the Mill Creek has a transfer. Bry don't have transfer. Monterey Terrace do have transfer too, right? Is that,
we did a
Did you-
long-term lease or
Long-term lease.
long-term for Station 19, and
right,
Station
76,
17.
76, they bought
76,
later on.
they
no.
bought and quit claimed it to us. The two Linwood stations, because I went to the county and did it.
So we did do the title search and all that stuff. There's no encumbrances, there's no,
Well, I don't recall doing any of that. I recall taking the documentation that Richard and worked through with their legal counsel and get signatures. I took it to the county, paid the $1,500 and transferred did the quit claim and transferred the ownership to us.
but we did, there's no underground drums or whatever things in there, right? And we did have clear title. That's my questions.
If there were things underground or any of that wouldn't affect title. That would just be kind of the condition of the property itself. What I'm talking about with the deed itself is title, whatever bundle in the law, we call it a bundle of sticks. Whatever that is that the city has, that same bundle is being transferred to South County Fire.
Yeah, but if there's underground drum though, and we become owner, we'll be responsible for it, right?
You would, and from an environmental perspective, yes.
So should we make sure that all these are clear?
You would, it's a little bit more complex than that because then you have indemnification or
Right.
claims against the other owners based on the length of their ownership, and different factors, frankly, which I'm not an expert in, but I do know that you're not on the hook completely.
So should we done all that to make sure?
So here's the approach that staff has taken with these is we get them as is. And if there's challenges, I mean, for example, we're taking Station 20, they're going to give it to us and we have to turn around and rebuild it. Right. So if we get a fire station as part of the deal, we take both the asset and the liabilities associated with it. And if they have an underground tank, that we now discover we're taking on the liability that the fire department would have had if they come. So I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Chan. We've not done that. I guess I'll say we take the station and it follows the people like we've done and it's ours and the city's no longer responsible for the fire side of the house. We are, and we take on both the
But
risk and
I assume
liability
there's
associated.
no, any mortgage still in
No.
there?
There's no,
You got clear title on that, clear on that, okay. No, that's one thing that even though if I do happen to ground from, it would be great to know about it so that we can, in the future, so we're not surprised. If we can do something, what, make me more comfortable. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners on this subject? I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Fernhoff's comments and thank the people of Edmonds for their strong vote in favor of annexation into South County Fire. I think it is in some ways, it is a comment on the good work that we have done for them on a contractual basis over many, many years. And now we start a new expanded relationship as a direct representation for the people of Edmonds and their fire service. So I look forward to that. The service remains the same, and in some ways it changes in the relationship, but I think it changes and expands in a good way. And I look forward to working with the people of Edmonds for many years into the future. And so I congratulate them on their decision, because it's nice from time to time. We don't get to hear a lot from our bosses, but we do sometimes, and we do at these elections where we listen to our bosses in Edmonds, and they tell us at the ballot box whether they like what we've done or not. And 62% voting in favor of that tells me they like the work that we've done, and that's good to hear. And we don't have the opportunity to hear that every day or even every year, but from time to time we do. And I think the resounding vote, because 62% is quite a positive vote, it sends a good message about the work that we have done and the work that Chief Wittes, his staff, but also all of our employees have done, providing service to the people in Edmonds. It's been a positive experience for them. They want to enhance that for the long term, and I concur in their judgment. Any other comments on the Edmonds transition? All right, we will move forward then. Thank you. We'll move forward in the agenda then to item number 11A, which is the Emergency Services Week proclamation, and that was with Director Veely.
Thank you, commissioners. I am here to present to you a resolution to recognize May 18th through 24th as Emergency Medical Services Week. So this is an opportunity to recognize our firefighters, the teams who provide this very vital service to our community. And it's an opportunity for us to educate our residents on this service and what goes into it. We have a lot of activities planned and community messages planned to support that effort, in addition to the proclamation that is before you tonight. So emergency medical services account for more than 80% of the services that we provide. So last year, that meant more than 32,000 of our calls, 32,000 of our more than 38,000 calls were EMS related. So every firefighter, for those who are watching and may not realize, every firefighter is trained as either an emergency medical technician to provide basic life support services or as a paramedic to provide advanced life support services. And that cross-training is really important because we have firefighters who can respond to both fires and EMS calls. We can provide more efficiency to our residents. We can ensure that no matter who gets to your house, wherever you're experiencing your emergency first, they can start trying to save your life, no matter who they are, no matter what truck they drive. So that's really important that we recognize that. We're going to host an open house, as we talked about earlier. That is again on Saturday, May 17th at Station 22. We'd love to see you all there. We're also planning on sharing some EMS-related social media content. We're going to talk some more about our cardiac arrest save rate, which is over 71%, we've already talked about. And we're also going to be talking a little bit more about things like our core program that week. So I would love for the commissioners to consider the resolution to proclaim May 18th through 24th Emergency Medical Services Week.
Thank you, Director Veely. Any general questions or comments about the resolution? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, I think it's important to know because we take for granted the system that's currently in place. But years ago, It used to be a very different story. Fire department would be trained in basic first aid and a few things, but oftentimes relied upon a third service, an ambulance coming from a hospital or other location to actually render aid and transport somebody. It's unique today that we're bringing the emergency room to the field on various levels, and that this department at least is capable, and we do on a regular basis transport our citizens. That's important to note because I come with a history of serving in the King County area, specifically in the city of Seattle, where you could get a fire engine, an ambulance, that's an aid unit, a medic unit that will show up, but yet be still transported by a private service at the end of the day, even though we had enough folks on scene to start a ball game. So it's important to know that our citizens here, we fully support you and on all levels. So once we make that first initial contact, you are in good hands. And so thank you so much for this.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I can echo what Commissioner Thurnhofer said. When we first approaching the Redmond citizen people, they keep on asking me, why you send 11 people to the to the area? Are you wasting all this manpower? That's why it's causing so much. But I think eventually when we change it from 62% to 71%, explaining that we're double what the national average is. Everybody say, oh, now I understand. I can explain to them. Each one have them a job to do. And that's actually, I personally witnessing when you guys come over to my brother, there's no talking. They would just like boom, 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 and get it done. So I think that really amazing that we have that EMS service.
I'll move the adoption of Resolution 0506-2025-09, National Emergency Medical Services Week, May 18 through 24, 2025, proclamation and recognition. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt that resolution. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Great. Thank you, Director Beasley. Moving forward in the agenda, that's to item 11B, which is consideration of a resolution amending the 2025 budget related to an additional assistant chief position. Chief Eastman.
Let me start from the beginning of where we are with the changes we've made in the fire marshal's office. I think it was December of 23. We were finishing up Mill Creek annexing into the RFA, and there were some challenges, Montlake Terrace, and there was some question about whether the city of Montlake Terrace was going to continue having the RFA provide fire marshal services, and as a result, there was clear direction given by the board to actually stay in the fire marshal game in all our partner cities. We've since done a lot of work, started amending the ILAs from how we were originally doing it, which is they pay for the people a la carte outside of them being in the RFA. And through that process, we realized that we had the statutory responsibility to do fire cause and determination in the cities that have annexed in the RFA, just not the unincorporated part of the RFA. And then we talk about the challenges we have about not having any statutory authority to do the fire code official work in any part of the RFA. And as we've worked through that, we've renegotiated the interlocal agreements with the cities that have annexed in, and we have a very similar agreement with the city of Edmonds now that they've annexed in. And it's changed how we provide and how our agreement works with the cities for fire marshal work and fire code official work. We have the ability to statutorily do the fire cause determination, so we have done that. We've changed how we're funded or how we cost recover, and we know it doesn't cover the full cost of providing the services that we provide. as far as the board adopted a fee schedule. That fee schedule has been incorporated within the city fee schedules. The cities then take our fee schedule through the permit process, collect the fees, and then remit those back to us. And that's in the infant stages. I know CFO Bothwell's been walking, we have been receiving dollars, specifically from Linwood. Some of the other cities, there's some challenges with just getting the process to work, and we're working through that with them. And so as we've worked through this and have had conversations, and if you go back in that time, I was responsible for prior to that, I was responsible to the fire marshal's office when Kevin Weber retired. When I moved into a different position, Todd took over the responsibilities of that. It's become very clear to me as the chief that with 5 cities that are in the RFA, that the oversight needed is become a full-time job, not a collateral. Todd's responsible for logistics and fire marshal work, and there's a requirement to have somebody watching it, and that is full-time work when you're dealing with 5 cities. And it'll be more than full-time work when we're successful at sometime in the future with providing that service in the whole RFA. The other challenge we've had is I was never credentialed in the fire marshal's realm, and nor was Todd. We're now at a place where I've got city directors asking me, and the fact is, when are we going to put leadership that has credentials? And so I've gotten to a place where we've been rolling along and we've been doing really good work to get it to a place, and I'm at a spot now where I don't believe I can wait through I would have preferred to do this through the formal budget process. I'm at a spot where I have cities that are now asking me leadership should probably be credentialed to do the work, or at least credentialed to supervise the work. And I believe that work and the supervision of that work needs to be connected to my office. There's a political reality to fire marshal work when you're talking about, codes and dealing with cities, and there's a lot of things that go along with it that it's outgrown my ability to do the technical work. I think it's outgrown Todd's ability to do the technical work. I've got a couple deputy chiefs in the division now, but they're not technical experts. And I sat and thought about it as I was gearing up and prepping for this conversation with the board tonight. We've actually changed and been in this current new role for less than a year. And we're trying to figure out what the fire marshal office should look like. We knew we were going to go forward and have some growing pains with it. And I came to the epiphany, I've got a real growing pain right now, and I've got cities that are now questioning, did we do the right thing? That's not their words. Those are my words based on how they asked me the questions that they've asked me. The reason you have the resolution in front of you is I need to get leadership that's technically understands the fire marshal, both the investigative side and the plan review side, to take us to the next place. It's just outside my ability to take it further, and I don't have necessarily the time with everything else we have going. And Todd's in the same boat. And I'm there as we look forward. I know there's going to be a little bit of growing pains to go along with this. And hence you have a resolution before you that allows me to go to 4 assistant chiefs with the funding associated with it. And I get it's mid-year and it's not my preference. I will also say that me looking to retire early next year, I know Chief Isotale is considering retirement early next year. We do have the opportunity to look at that when it comes time to replace. When you replace me, you're going to have an assistant chief's position in the organization. You'll have an assistant chief's position when Jason chooses to retire. And there will be conversations leading up to that is, do we actually need 4? And be able to do what I've done with the board over time is to be able to truly justify the need for the 4. Right now I have a need for 4 because I need the technical expert expert in the fire marshal's office, leading that team of people to get us to the next place. And to finish the organizational structure that needs to be there, continue working with the building officials and that to get us, down the place, and then figure out what we truly need to do from a staffing perspective to finish out, to be able to do all the work we said we we're going to do. And again, we still have legislative activities we need to do, specific to getting the fire code official work as statutory in those cities and ultimately in the RFA. And so that's the ask from me to the board tonight. And I want to say we put it in to increase the assistant fire chiefs to 4. If I'm going to move somebody up to that position, I want them to know it's a permanent position in the organization. But there will be a conversation with my staff as we move forward, as I look to retire, is do we really need 4? And if we do need 4, we will come back with the board and give the justification of why. I know I've had conversations with others and they look at me and say, we know the work you do, you need 4. But I owe you the work that I said I was going to do when we add FTEs to the budget. I'm just in a spot now where I need some help. But I'm also in a place where I know early next year, we can reduce back down to 3 if that's the direction we decide to go. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions from the board.
Questions from the board, Commissioner Fernhoff.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, our discussions prior and scaling back and having flexibility, maintaining a dynamic approach to this, problem solving. I've heard the union, they have some concerns about this from the labor representation side. I think when you use the word expert, right? Is that what the phrase you use for trying to bring somebody in? It's really about credentialing, isn't it?
I guess that's probably a more appropriate word, that they're technically credentialed
Correct.
to fill the role in the
So,
office.
at least in my mind, if I were sending somebody out and we were going to be conducting an investigation, we're creating an evidence chain, all of these kinds of things, I think that's where it comes into, so we don't lose traction on something that we're trying to determine cause or arson or these kinds of things. So I fully support the notion that we need this kind of position. And on the horizon of potentially taking on Mukilteo, taking on Everett, the scope of this changes, the workload changes. And so for a single depth, with all due respect to Chief Anderson, it may very well be that there's a 12 or 24-month argument that we do need to upscale just for those types of considerations. It's complex work. And I appreciate you bringing this to the attention of the board, because we want to make sure that you're successful. So thank you, sir.
Commissioner Chan? Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of take a little different look. I really do not, you talk about your retirement and all that, and then also a possibility going from 4 back to 3 again. I would rather, I rather wait until the new chief decided what this thing is, right? Rather than this movement here. And I was also too, I'm very concerned about sending this $345,000 position. And, can a less amount with same credential will work for that? So I really hesitate. I don't think I get convinced enough such a short time and make these changes, and then we may change back, which is, I don't think is good for the organization. So I'm really questioning
Well,
it.
so I guess I want to clarify, reducing back to 3 ACs is it wouldn't, we still have the fire marshal doing their work,
Right.
right? It's just there may be ways where, as we reorg the fire marshal's office, we move some people around, we may create the ability to where I have let's just say because we have 2 deputy chiefs in the in fire marshal office now.
Right.
Maybe I don't need that. I take one of the deputy chiefs, make him a planning chief. I probably do need that at some time in the future. And if I have a planning chief doing that work as a deputy chief, a lot of what Jason, Todd, and Sean do is planning. And so if I bring in a deputy and just move them from the fire marshal's office to the to the planning chief's perspective, I may have somebody doing work and I technically don't need 3 anymore, right? And so I don't think we're ping ponging, Commissioner Chan. The fact is I need somebody that has the certifications and the qualifications and the technical expertise to run the fire marshal's office. It's gone past my comfort level. The question of can it be somebody of lesser rank? To be technically correct to you, yes. The difference is in my opinion, because of the political nature of that job, it needs to be connected to my office, directly connected to my office, which is why I believe it needs to be an assistant chief. They interact with city officials, right? I mean, they are me and representing my office when they go and represent the work that they do. And I will say it's not all, we don't have a lot of contention, right? But as you go through, there can be, right? And so I believe it needs to be an assistant chief. I believe it needs to be somebody that's connected to my office. And I understand exactly what the dollars cost for people in those positions, but moving forward organizationally and remember, we have 5 cities that we're responsible for to do this work. And if we have our way, we're going to have the county. And so it is, I mean, and if you go back and remember when we first created the RFA, we had Todd Gates doing the work, assistant chief. We had Kevin Weber doing the work, an assistant chief. We had Mike Fitzgerald do assistant chief. And we were in a very different place with the fire marshal's office than we are now. I'm very proud of the fact that the board has the fire marshal's office as a general expenditure from the general fund, right? It is a core function of what this organization does now. And so now we're moving to the place. And I understand the dollars and cents associated with the Commissioner Chan that wasn't thought of lightly by me either. I mean, you know where I sit fiscally within the organization. But I will say, as the fire chief and where we are and the direction that the board gave me to stay in the fire marshal game, this is what I need to move us to the next place. And again, my preference would have been not coming to you in May and having the conversation. I would have much preferred to be our normal process. This is outside. This isn't normally how I'd like to do it, but I'm in a spot now where some of my dialogue with the cities that we represent has made things a little bit more urgent in my eyes. And I need to, I'm not going to say course correct because the folks doing the work have been doing fantastic work. This isn't because the work is not going very well, but I need to provide different oversight. And they have to have the technical expertise and the understanding to take us to the next place. And that's really what the ask is. And organizations and fire chiefs ask for people and get them. And, I understand the fact that we're in a position where in the spring of next year, we have an opportunity to go back to 3 ACs if we choose to through attrition. And I say that in all sincerity. I don't necessarily know if it's totally my decision at that point in time. My hope is we're promoting from within, and there'll be a lot of dialogue about what we need to do organizationally, and we'll have the conversation about that then like we are with this now. And organization make a decision, and if we have a legitimate position and can say why we need to keep 4, I believe we have a duty to bring that forward and justify the fact that we need to keep 4.
But the question is, you said the fire chief, the fire marshal need to be connected to the chief office. That means the chances of that reducing to 3 will be really slim, right? Because And then I'm not sure, is it politically, other city, do they really, that critical that, to deal with the cities in there? Um,
They're
so,
the ones that brought it to me, yes.
Right, but, okay, so I mean, that's, no, I totally understand what it is, but to me is that I'd like to wait until the next chief, what does he want? Because it was difficult for him to go back to free. But also, I don't look at that, well, Makatil is coming, Everett's coming. I think we have to plan as we need now, not the other two. I don't know when will they come, whether they even come in or not, right? So that's
Well,
my thinking.
I
yeah.
will say in where I'm sitting as the fire chief, the need is now.
Okay,
The challenges when you bring in an Edmonds or Mukilteo just add to the complexity. Honestly, we're in a spot, especially now that Edmonds is annexed in, where I'm in need of it today. I don't think we can wait until I retire and you bring in the next chief to decide if we're gonna have an assistant chief in that role. I will tell you by that time, you are in jeopardy of not having a city be part of the ILA.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rowland. And then Commissioner Wittes.
I share a little bit of the skepticism, but I also realize as an organization, we've continued to be very deliberative about growing the staff side of things, the leadership side of things. I do believe this shift that we've made with the cities from ILAs, where each city had its own kind of assigned resource, and they were kind of islands unto themselves. With their own code enforcement and all of that. The whole purpose of keeping this in-house was to try to centralize it, was to try to prepare for the future. And I think that makes a lot of sense right now, especially with the question of credentialing. It is a little bit ironic that when the cities were paying for it, they didn't really care if they were credentialed or not. But now that they're not paying for it, they want somebody that's more qualified. But that's the nature of the beast. My question is, number one, when we talk about credentialing, what type of process is that to have someone go through it if it was done from scratch? If we had a bus contingency type situation where we didn't have anybody that could or wanted to, or something happened half a year down the road and things changed. What is that process? How long is the runway to it? What is the burden?
So with my deputy fire marshals, it's a 12-month runway to do the basics, right? To do the basic. I don't know of all the classes that they have, but you're talking probably to get to the level of what I'm talking about is probably 4.5 years, 5 years. Because you're talking about somebody who's done the work for a long time, right? They've done things where they understand arson investigation, they understand those components. They understand the International Fire Code. They know how to do plans reviews. They've done plan reviews. So there's a component of getting the credential, and then there's a certain aspect of getting a little bit of experience under your belt. So you've actually done the work too. And again, but it does take time. We've come to the understanding that the fire marshal's office has some technical expertise needs, specifically in the plan review side of the house, that I need to pre-plan and get people educated before I need them, so I don't end up with a hole, right? And we've done that with the deputy fire marshals. I've got 4 that are in training now, that will go back to the company with their training, so I can actually have successor planning and all that with it. But to caliber what I'm talking about, it's a handful of years.
Is the purpose or the function of this credentialing somewhat legal in nature, in the fact that this individual would be the one that would be called in to court cases to testify, or how does that factor in?
So yes, and all our investigators have the potential of being called in to testify for that.
Okay.
But here's an example for me is I've got this person's connected to my office, and there's a discrepancy between the person doing the plan review and the building code official, and I need somebody that's part of my office that actually can say, here is the code path, or there's multiple code paths, and say, pick the one you want. Here's the one fire fire prefers, but all three of these are code paths and they all meet the code and they all meet the intent of what you need to do to build, if there's conflict. Now, conflicts don't happen very often, right? But there are times where, right now I've got deputy fire marshals that are in cities. And they all do things a little bit different, not saying it's good or bad. But we need to be more consistent. And so I need somebody at the top to provide that consistency. Right. And the other piece is we need to build, I now need to build a division and have people in the place to actually build it. Right. We've taken what we had.
Yep.
And again, the people that are doing the work have done great work, and the people that are currently my deputy chiefs and Todd and we've done great work. We're just at a spot where I have to transition quickly, or there's concerns out there that I'm trying to address with the board that cities have brought to my attention, to make sure we stay in the fight as the board's desire was back in December of 23.
Would it be accurate to say that this may have been one of the organizational structural things that we probably should have seen in retrospect, but regardless of that, just needs to be addressed?
I think there's part of that, Commissioner Rowland. I think there's, hindsight's a great thing, and to be honest, we probably should have started having this conversation when we had Linwood sign the first ILA. And part of that was just with everything going on, and I'm not an expert in the fire marshal world, and part of my lack of experience in that, and maybe not realizing some things, I'm probably a little bit late to the game, and we probably could have had this conversation before. But again, back when that was happening, we were entering down the fact of Edmonds. And so there's a lot of other collaborating factors that went along with it. And I think it took, quite frankly, it took a city director to come to me and raise a concern. I went back home, thought about it, and went, oh, crap. And then I actually started thinking about where we needed to go. And again, the first choice wasn't adding to the budget. It was, how can I do this? And I quickly came to the component that I don't think I need help.
Well, I will say that I do like the idea, I guess, backing up on a personal level, looking at the organizational chart back when I joined this organization. I didn't quite understand why we had two DCs over the fire marshal's office, and we had that kind of split up. It seemed like that should be more centralized. The idea of moving that down to one makes sense, so long as, we have good work that needs to be done. I'm not looking to eliminate a DC at all throughout this process, but that idea of balancing it out, and some of this responsibility that may have been shared between the two being under one head with one voice, makes a lot of sense. So I am in support of this. I think we just need to do better in the future about planning these out when we do these big organizational shifts. But with Mill Creek coming in, with Edmonds, with everything that's been going on the last 2-3 years, I'm not going to stick on the fact that we didn't get ahead of this as best we could.
Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that, and I probably have a little more insight than the rest of you being in the service, but that was something I seen coming when we decided to do the fire official business. I think this is just another step in the process. We need one person to oversee the whole thing. And my impression, that's just what it was. As far as the 3 versus 4, I think that's a conversation for next year. That's something will come out. I think we went to the cities and said that we were going to do this work and we're going to do it professionally. And I think we need to take that step to do it that way. Thank you.
Any other general discussion on the commissioner? No? Any other general discussion on the issue?
I was just going to move that or is this asked for action tonight?
Yes, the resolution.
Then I would move the adoption of the resolution.
And that's
do you have the number? I got to pull it up here.
Yeah, 05062025-10.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Commissioner Rowland and second by Commissioner Fernhoff to adopt that resolution, adding the Assistant Chief position. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Shan, go ahead.
Chief, I really like you. Since really I understand where you stand, but I think the timing of it is kind of bad. And also tie the hand of the next chief. So I have to say vote no, but I think you got enough support here. I apologize that I have to vote no.
Any other discussion on the motion? Any other, Commissioner Wittes, go ahead. Are you still?
Oh, I didn't put my hand down. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
Any other discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rowland.
I just do want to also say that I think in the next, as we're looking at transitions and you're spinning off, we do need to look organizationally at what makes the most sense now that we're in the position that we're in when it comes to leadership, whether that is 3 or 4. I think we need to have those tough discussions about, across the board, how do we, with the new set of individuals in those seats, best divide out the roles. I honestly don't foresee this necessarily being the only job of this AC, but for right now, it's where the need is, and I'm sure organically or otherwise we'll balance it out or make changes as we need. By no means am I tying the hands of the next chief. If the next chief comes in and says, we only need 3, then we'll have to address that.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion passes on a 6-1 vote. Commissioner Chan voting no. Thank you.
On behalf of Chief and staff, thank you very much.
That moves us forward in the agenda then to item 12, which is committee updates, starting with capital facilities. Commissioner Lawrence, anything from capital facilities?
Nothing to report.
Very good. Finance and Human Resources, Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, going to do a discussion with CFO. We'll give to the notice to next week.
That sounds good. Intergovernmental, Commissioner Wittes.
I think we can say we had a little bit of a vacation and justifiably so with Edmonds. And I just really want to thank the staff and everybody who supported it and did all the work. I know the staff was down there 2-3 times a week in meetings. I know the committee we have was down there quite a bit. And just want to say thanks to that. And I'm sure we're going to start meeting again here real quick. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Snow 911 with Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, good evening. Just want to make you aware that we have cut over to the new radio system. I don't know, Melissa, do we have the picture from the event? We did a press conference on Wednesday, April 30th, in which we had police chiefs, fire chiefs, the primary folks that have run the Snow 911, including radio technicians and other folks there to announce it. You may have seen it in the media. What this means is that we have gone from a 20-some-odd-year-old radio system and have now implemented a little over $70 million worth of upgrades to a digital capable two-way radio system. What does this mean? When you go to digital, you split in half the current frequency that you're using, so you effectively double your capacity. We added also 2 more what they call sites. This is with the antennas that form the system, which now gives us greater depth to the east for some communities that were not covered. So we were featured on a couple of news stations, including in the Linwood Times, and we are fully functional as of 8 o'clock this morning. And at 9:05, we had our first challenge with a commercial structure fire that really stressed the system. So at this point in time, we're really happy to declare victory on this level. Stay tuned. I'm sure there will be a little tuning of the system, as they say, moving forward. So subject to your questions, that concludes my brief.
I do have a question.
Sure. For Commissioner
I read
Fernhoff.
an article, somehow they said the cell phone can interact with the radio?
So these new radios have kind of like a dual personality. They're not schizo or anything like
Right.
that, but they can operate on an LTE system, which is your cell phone network. They can operate on Wi-Fi. They can have Bluetooth in them. It's kind of like a cell phone within a radio that's hybrid. And of course, they're ruggedized so they can take all the abuse that, not to say that we're abusive to our equipment, but you know, yeah, they can take the abuse.
So,
that's
so anyone can just use a cell phone to,
No, it's not as simple as that.
that's simple then,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it was a, boy, technology
no.
have
yeah.
gone so fast that when I was there, okay.
Chief, am I missing any key components? Okay.
I guess I'll just report, there were no issues that I'm aware of. And I would have probably been made aware if there were. I know organizationally we did fine. And we'll get updates. If there's anything significant that happens, we'll add it to the chief's report. But right now, it's a great move, and it took them many years to get there.
Yeah, no, we're very proud at Snow 911 of the accomplishments. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Rowe.
I just did want to say that one of the questions I had for Commissioner Fernohoff on that was, there was some concern about public safety and the ability for the community to still access those bands in the case of an emergency, at least from a consumption standpoint, not that they would be on them. And he informed me that for fire, that is the case, that we're not encrypting it so that no one can listen.
Yeah, so you may have also seen some media coverage about how the system was quoted to be now encrypted. What that means is that if you have a device like a scanner or something like that in the past, you could monitor police and fire calls. From a public safety and officer safety and agency accountability perspective, it was decided that law enforcement would transition into what they call an encrypted format, which means that unless your radio has a very specific code to decrypt the transmission, a person with a scanner, for example, would not be able to hear it. Currently, fire remains in the clear. We're not encrypted. Some law enforcement channels remain in the clear. For example, national interoperable frequencies are in the clear. But for those special operations, SWAT teams and these kinds of things, our drug interdiction teams, they wanted to be able to communicate in a way that folks that were using a scanner or were rebroadcasting the scanner feed over the internet through different apps wouldn't give away their operational posture. So does that cover that pretty much, sir? Okay.
Yeah, I was pleased to hear that we didn't lose anything because of this change from a public safety and you know, disaster preparedness standpoint.
Yes.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I just want to echo with the chief and the staff. This is our first meeting after the vote on the amendments, so I think Commissioner Withers and I are going to go down there and to say, welcome to the family. And we definitely will be, since both of us are at large, so, but I could tell them, I think all 7 of us really welcome that the Edmonds people come as a family. So, and good job staff doing that.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, next up, we have an executive session for potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4231-10-1I. We'll have our attorney, Rich Davis, present via Zoom for that meeting. And that I see that it's 10 minutes to 10, which with our transition time back to executive session doesn't leave a lot of time for discussion of potential litigation prior to 10 p.m. It is a time-sensitive issue. My suggestion is that we extend our possible meeting time to 10:15 to accommodate some time for, I know, Liaison Swisher, I know you laugh at me, but I'm trying to be optimistic. Extend it to 10:15 to up to 10:15 so that we can have some discussion on the on that. Otherwise, our discussion will be rather limited.
Do we need to have a motion?
I was just going to make a motion. So I'll move that we extend up to 10:15 our, move back our adjournment time to no later than 10:15. That's my motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Teofilak. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So we'll Let's take 5 minutes back to executive session, starting at 5 minutes to 10. We'll be in executive session from 9:55 to 10:15, and we do not plan on taking action at the conclusion of executive session. With that, we'll be in a brief recess back to executive session. Thank you. Excellent.
The regular meeting is called back to session at 10:15 PM. And without objection, the chair has adjourned the meeting at 10:15 PM.